Hey everybody, welcome back to the Billionair Podcast, and I'm your host Billy Vasily, and today we've got a special guest, Luke Balcke, and Luke has he's actually been on the podcast before. You were episode 2, so the place was a lot different back then.
Mate, you've come a long way. I'm very impressed. It's very comfortable in here.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I feel like I'm on the Joe Rogan podcast almost.
Maybe one day I'll become the Australian version of him. Who knows?
Mate, I've listened to a few of his recent ones with some big name guests, for example, some of the big actors, and also Elon.
Yeah.
And I just can't help shake the idea that they're gatekeeping a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Gatekeeping a lot.
You can tell. And that's why he doesn't have Eddie Bravo on anymore. Because Eddie Bravo was constantly talking about the flat earth.
Yeah.
He was constantly poking and prodding. Yeah. I don't know if you've noticed, but Alex Jones, he's like...
Same.
He's like fully like gatekeeper now. Yeah. He's probably a 33-degree Mason. He's probably just like whatever, shelling out because they gave him a $1 billion lawsuit.
Yeah. I was listening to Elon one, and he was saying things with such certainty that were quite uncertain, and I was like, this is just purely propaganda, which is, I guess that's what happens when you sell out. And I'm not begrudging it, because given the same circumstances, where would I lie in that situation? Here's a bill. Don't know.
That's why I'm the only billionaire that's for the people, mate. I got your backs, all right? I got your backs. I'm the only one that cares about yous.
I would like to think that I have that integrity, but in that situation, I don't know.
He's got 350 billies.
Yeah.
Right? And then he's on the Joe Rogan podcast saying, I'm an alien. I keep telling you I'm an alien, but you don't believe me.
Yeah.
It's because I'm an alien. So it's time you knew.
I thought about it.
I'm an alien, and I keep telling people I'm an alien, but they don't believe me.
I believe you.
Okay, thank you.
I believe you.
That's
my suspicion all along was that you were
I'm just
an
trying
alien.
to get back to my home planet.
Like, what the fuck's that?
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Yeah.
It's nuts.
That's not to say that the aliens can't do good things.
Of course.
Let's judge him on his merit, but also there's a lot that you just go, hang on a second. Why are you pretending to go to space?
If he was an alien, and we know there's different types of aliens, what kind of alien do you reckon he would be?
Shit.
There's Arcturians, there's Palladians, there's plenty of different kinds of aliens.
Yeah, my alien folklore is not up to scratch, and I'm a little bit dubious about people claiming alien heritage.
Yep.
I think it's a bit of there's a lot of new age bollocks in that.
Deborah reckons she's an Arcturian.
Right.
I believe her. She's got that Arcturian vibe.
Yeah.
But I don't know about Elon.
But yeah, who knows, man?
Who knows?
He wants to go to Mars.
Why? Have you seen the giant plasma cut that's on the massive scar that's on Mars?
Even if I did see that, I don't believe that, because I don't think Mars as a planet is what we've been led to believe. I think Mars is a realm, not unlike this realm that we live in, but on the same plane of existence, just not here. And Elon, he's an occultist at a high degree, okay?
Definitely.
So his birth chart, he's a Cancerian, but he has Aries rising, right? And Aries rising is ruled by Mars. So he's a native of Mars. His Tesla logo, if you break that down, I don't know if you want to pop it up or anything, the Tesla logo is basically the symbol for Aries. And he's constantly got this idea that we're going to go to Mars. Now, he has Tesla and he has SpaceX and he has X. But actually, one of his biggest companies that doesn't get a lot of publicity is the Boring Company. Have you heard of this?
The Boring Company.
He owns a company called
I've heard of
the Boring Company. You know what the Boring Company does? It's not boring like, oh, that's boring. It bores underground tunnels. Like, that's what that company does. It makes underground tunnels. Why would you be boring underground, Elon? So my theory is that Mars exists beyond this realm outside of our enclosure.
Yep.
Let's just call the ice wall as the boundary of this enclosure.
Yep.
And that for some reason they maybe can't get beyond it or not allowed to.
That's why they did the 1947 treaty.
For sure.
In Antarctica.
So what if they bore underneath it? What if the SpaceX is just an arm of this propaganda to continue the story of we're going to space and this whole, undiscovered frontier of space and blah, 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 which they know full well you can't leave this realm. You can't go beyond the Van Allen. You can't get outside the firmament. You just can't go on the moon. Like all these things. They know it, but they don't want us knowing that. So they have to keep this illusion going because it fits this sort of, idea of like, we're on a planet.
Is it almost
we're
like...
on a planet. We're floating in space. No,
there's
we're
nothing
not.
out there. It's just a universe. We're nothing.
Well, I think what is out there can't be explored in the physical. I think what is out beyond this realm, you no longer can have a physical body in order to go. You have to have a light body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why when you're doing like ayahuasca and things like that, you can travel
You can
into
leave.
those realms.
Yeah, because you're not in your physical body.
Does that mean maybe the reason why they want to keep everyone kind of like subdued is because if everyone actually found out what's happening, the simulation would end?
Yeah, and I think part of upholding the simulation is to keep people in the illusion of that we're on a planet floating in space and that you can leave it via spacecraft.
And that keeps everyone calm and relaxed. But they've been saying that since the 60s. It's been 60 years.
So my theory is that Elon is upholding this idea, and part of the reason why he can have access to certain advanced technologies and why he's the face of all of these phenomenal businesses, whether you agree with...
They're the biggest businesses in the world. You got the Boring Company. What do? They're just boring holes everywhere. They're supposed to be doing the East-West link, probably has been taking like 15 years.
Yeah.
Then you've got Tesla, which was a massive revolutionary electronic car brand, which they tried. So many people tried, but then he did it.
Arguably the best, mass manufactured electric car.
And he did SpaceX, all of that off PayPal. He started PayPal.
Yeah.
And then made $180 million. And from $180 million, he's turned that into $360 billion or $400 billion now.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, I think that beyond that level of success or, achievement, there's a hierarchy that sort of say, cool, you've reached this status now. So in order for you to maintain that status, here's what we need you to do and not
dress up
do.
as Baphomet.
Pretty much. So then he bores under the dome or the ice wall or wherever into the land beyond.
Agatha.
And that when he finally cracks the frontier to Mars and we've sent a space rocket, the rocket went up. You didn't see where it went. But ultimately they've just tunneled people out and into the realm that they've called Mars. And it exists on this plane just outside of our zone.
The fog of war.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Like a map. That's interesting.
But then he's part of his deal, just like Rogan's deal, when he signs up to a multi-billion-dollar company to gatekeep information.
Because he's mainstream now, When I started watching Rogan back in 2011, 10, right, no one was watching this guy, right? And he used to be a bit different. He used to have different people
100%.
on. Now he's probably like, okay, I got to make sure I don't get killed. He's probably a part of the Masons now. He's got more power than the fucking news. So they would have a noose around his neck.
Absolutely.
Here, take more testosterone. Just make sure you do as we say.
Yeah. And within the boundaries of that, he has probably free will. But there's certain topics
Boundaries
that he
can't
doesn't
bring
go
up.
to. And then when they touch upon them, he'll have a guest like Elon come on that reinforces that's not possible. I know I have the information. Like I'm the authority here in this regards, But then if you come back to Elon, his job is to uphold the illusion of space, right? And that's why when you think about this guy, he obviously has sort of hyper intelligence. He's probably a smart fucking bloke, right?
They say he's got 155 IQ.
Right. Which I don't know what that means, but it probably means he's intelligent.
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
So, but then you think, okay, someone that intelligent that's going to continue to deceive us with this, we just rescued these people in space. Clearly all of that is propaganda and acting and green screen.
Why does it always look like CGI? Yeah, like I'm on the fence with Flat Earth. Like I like to be in the middle because then I can listen to both people's sides and have people on and not shun people. And like everyone's allowed to believe what they want to believe, right? But that shit looks like straight up CGI to me.
Well, Elon sent a Tesla into space, and
That looked like CGI too.
and he said you can tell it's real because it looks so fake,
He's laughing.
right?
He's just laughing.
He's telling
at
you straight to your face, right? And that's the same thing. Is like,
That's how the occult work. They
Don't-
have to tell you.
don't insult my intelligence, bro. You're a smart man, and perhaps I don't hold the intelligence level that you do, but I'm smart enough to know that that bullshit that you're pulling with regards to saving people trapped in space for 8 months, that's fake. And I don't have to be very intelligent to work that out. I can just see and look at that and go, that's not real. That's not real. That's fake. So the problem is, well, not the problem, the vast majority of people living within the paradigm of this illusion are like, oh my God, isn't that amazing? They've been able to do that.
They save the people from withering away and starving
And isn't he the hero of that? And isn't it great we have him and his technology and all of that?
problem, reaction, solution.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
100%.
It's just the latest thing for the week.
Yeah. And then the other angle will stay on this Elon situation for a little bit is that
Yep.
people are like worried about this whole Neuralink.
The brain chip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I look at Neuralink a little bit like a vaccine. And now if you look at COVID era and they come out with an offer to say, hey, you got to mandate and you got to have this and you got to do it and this is how you got to do it. Cool. I'm okay if you want to do that. I'm not going to do that. So you got a lot of
That's right.
truthers that are on that. Yeah, but he wants to put a chip in everyone's head. That's not going to be mandatory. That's going to be optional.
Probably
so just,
going to have to pay for it.
but just the same thing. Like I'll opt out of that. Thank you very much. Just like I opt out of the last bollocks, and I'll opt out of any of the type of bollocks they try to force down us.
Of course.
Anything that the system's saying this is a good thing and this is what you should be doing, you want to do the opposite and you'll be right, you'll be fine. So the argument about him, he's not good for us because he wants to put a Neuralink, I don't begrudge him for that, because if he's got some technology that can, put something in someone's brain and operate it AI driven or whatever, fucking cool, go for it, bro. I'm not going to do that.
I'm all right being a free range human.
Cool, I'll opt out of that.
I'll be organic.
100%.
Yeah.
So I don't look at that as a reason why he should be looked at someone bad or evil, but I do look at the fakery when it comes to his space propaganda, is to go, man, don't insult our intelligence, please.
Well, when I look at Neuralink, I think of Mark of the Beast a little bit. You know what I
I've
mean?
got a theory on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's, yeah, go on.
I think the mark of the beast is your birth certificate and the strawman.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I think it is. Because
You're a
the
corporation.
mark of the beast and the number associated to that is 666. So you got 3 sixes, right?
Yep.
Well, just a 6 on its own relates to man, right? The number 6. And it relates in the, tree of life Kabbalistic system of correlation. It relates to what we call the center of the tree, which is the heart space, known as the Tifereth, or the place of beauty, right? And if it's said that if you're invoking that energy, you're in balance and harmony. So 6 on its own is not a necessarily negative thing. But if you have 3 sixes, you have the physical man, you have the spiritual man, and then you have the created man. Man's created his own version of himself, which is the duplication of our identity in this straw man. If you think about what the birth certificate system does, and it's a system,
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
They call it the beast system. I think that we're living in it already. I don't think it's coming, or a stamp or a mark. I think the mark is your birth certificate is the mark, because it establishes this third entity, because there's the physical, the spiritual, and now there's this third entity that's fictitious. It doesn't have existence, but it's part of it. It connects you to the system. And what is that system? That's the beast system.
It's the matrix.
Right, the
It's control
666. Every time there's been some problem within the system, what do they want to do? They want to build back better. B, 666. Because a B, look at a B, it's like a 6, right? So they're tuning into that same programming again. And then if you go 666, it equals 18. So you've got the 1, and then you've got the 8. So the 1 is controlled by the 8. The 8 is the mind. So this system is a mind control system. It's an enslavement of your mind from birth, right? And then 1 and 8 equals 9. So how do they maintain that control? Through the 9, which is the moon, the luna, the emotions. So they just trap us with emotions within this particular system. And we're afraid to get outside of that system. Even if we had the awareness and knowledge of what that system does and the control that it has, we have to confront the feelings of security that it gives us.
God damn.
So that's my theory
I
of
didn't know
the
that.
beast
That's
and
crazy.
the mark of the beast. And the system, like, oh, he's going to bring in the mark. He's the Antichrist. He's all. We're already living that shit.
You're born into it straight away.
The Antichrist, I believe, is this idea of the version of you that exists that actually doesn't exist. It's just given validity because it's part of the system. And without the creation of that, there is no system. And it's a beast. It's a system. Like when they say the beast, that system is a creation of men, as in man, created that. So God creates man. We're created in his image. And then we create what? We create in our own image. And what do we create in our own image?
The beast.
The beast. Yeah. Anyway, that's my theory.
That's interesting. Very interesting. Well, we're not going to be creating a god. We're going to be creating something lower than us, which is beast. I don't know what's going to happen with this AI stuff because that's already smarter than us, I believe.
In intelligence-wise.
Intelligence-wise, yes.
Yeah.
Definitely intelligence-wise. Consciousness-wise, who knows? That's only could be a matter of time before it achieves sentience, and I don't know what's going to happen, but thanks to AI, even though it's probably going to murder and kill us all and enslave us and put us in the gloom.
In the meantime, let's go down with a fucking blaze of glory.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Hopefully I can nurture a good AI. That's the plan. Resistance AI.
You know, I had a client and sort of a friend a couple of years ago, and she was right up into the high echelons of government in relation to AI. And her role was to train AI to be compassionate and empathetic to humans, because she said it's not about trying to go to war with it or anything like that. Like, we have to basically give it intelligence to protect us.
100%.
And I was like, yeah, that's quite admirable.
Well, do you want it to have like the wounded child trait, or do you want it to have like a happy upbringing trait?
But also,
what I mean?
you know, if it comes from a purely fucking technological standpoint, analytical without empathy, it could just say, oh, you guys are fucked. And it's easier if...
Eliminate, fuck you humans.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You know, so it needs empathy to realize we're human and we're fucking human.
Yeah. Who knows how long it's actually been around for? Because they gave it to the masses during COVID, right? Probably is like just threw it at us like, yeah, they're at home. Might as well just like give them it and then just monitor them and see how they use it. But how long did they have it before? How long did the companies and the governments have AI? Were they using that in Event 201 to figure out how to control us and lock us down? And now it's here. We're at ChatGPT 4.5 now, and they're going to release ChatGPT 5 soon. And apparently ChatGPT 4 is 160 IQ, which is the same IQ as Albert Einstein. But the jump between ChatGPT 4 to ChatGPT 5 will be a 10x jump. So ChatGPT 5 is going to have a 1500 IQ. That's huge, man. That's mental. And when that happens and when that comes in, like, that's when people are going to start really paying attention to AI. It's just about to happen. Probably at the end of this year, I think they're going to release it. So we'll see. Probably be a big paywall, but...
Yeah, the issue I have is that intelligence measured from that metric is lacking in other types of intelligence.
Intuition.
Spiritual intelligence.
Yep.
Gnosis.
It's just a straight analytical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be like taking the brain out of someone and feeding it a whole lot of things in order to make it a massive, huge, giant fucking brain. But a brain without a heart? Yeah. Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
You know, anytime you look back in history at art and culture and mythology and things like that, anytime we've done this, it's never ended well. And then we also have pop culture with regards to Hollywood and movies and books and things. And anytime they've ever depicted this, they've never depicted it in a great light. It's always...
The post-apocalyptic world.
100%. And
John
I feel
Connor.
the issue is that the brain can't be used on its own and given elevated status above the heart, right?
Yeah.
And AI is basically like a giant human brain that's supersized and amplified.
No heart.
No heart.
No heart.
No. And we could say you could program into it these things, but it can't know what it's like to have a heart because it just doesn't have one. And if you think about humans and the center of our being, it's always here. It's not here.
Yeah, you lead with your heart.
It's here.
You lead with your heart.
Yeah. And I guess what separates us from other parts of the animal plant kingdom is the fact that our heart.
And they've shown that you have neurons. You have neurons in your heart.
Yeah.
And what did the COVID vaccines attack?
Yeah.
It
Well,
attacked.
two things.
Yeah.
The crown
Yeah.
through the heart.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, disconnection.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that, if you look at the system, it also doesn't have a heart. That's why you see within the system, those that are operating the system are heartless, but they're parading this idea of empathy and compassion like they do. But you can look at most of our leading bureaucrats and politicians,
Yep.
most of them, not everyone, but the vast majority,
Definitely.
especially the career type, fucking heartless.
Heartless criminals, mate.
Yeah.
We'll get
Disconnected.
We'll get onto the topic of the Republic soon. But let's I wanted to speak to you about the pyramids. There've been a lot of things happening with the Giza plateau in the last week. It's been crazy. They're discovering things under the pyramids. People like you and I have been saying for a long time, they're not burial chambers.
No.
There's something else going on here. Doesn't make sense. What, you're going to build a whole giant thing and it looks like a computer chip from the bird's eye view, and it's all built to put someone in it. Like, come on, man, come on. And then you got Zahi Hawass, who's just a shill, and they've all sold out. All the Egyptians are probably sold out because money talks.
Yeah, or also they may be just creating a cover story to conceal the truth, and maybe that's what they've been given the job to do, is to not allow the actual truth of this to come out.
Of course.
So they create this cover story and idea, and
that's why they got Mr. Beast about a month or two ago.
Right.
Mr. Beast, who is the biggest YouTuber,
Yeah.
right? For anyone that doesn't.
Beast Games was kind of cool. I watched that.
After the final episode of Beast Games dropped, then he did this YouTube video that was him going to the Pyramids of Giza. He had 24 hours all to himself. The whole Giza plateau was booked out just for him and his mates. And he had the guides, that Hawass guy, and pretty much all the standard rhetoric that's being pushed was probably pumped through him to reinforce to the masses, and especially to the younger generation, that this is what it is and that's all it is. And pretty much that's what the YouTube video, the goal of it. And it had 100 million views in like a couple of days.
Yeah,
so
wow.
obviously it's an effective video. My video is probably not going to get that many views, but at least I know that I'm speaking the fucking truth, mate.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's coming from the heart.
Yeah, I didn't know that about Mr. Beast.
Yeah,
but that would make
sellout.
sense.
Oh, that's how
100%.
how do you think he got the name Mr. Beast, and how do you think he got that big?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
He signed with his
Of
his
course.
blood.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Yeah, that's very interesting. The latest information, it could be a couple of things. It could be designed to distract us.
yep.
It could be propagandized, but it certainly is. Like, this is not a new discovery. This is just the release of the discovery in my eyes. And that, I feel, from an astrological perspective, aligns to the Pluto Aquarius transit.
Yeah.
Is a lot of buried shit comes
Definitely.
to light. It's the impact that this has on the awareness and consciousness of humanity that I'm more interested in. It's not necessarily the actual pyramids and what they were for and what they're for. It's like we're realizing, okay, first of all, what we were initially told, like in grade 10 science, that it was a burial chamber for the pharaohs of the past. Oh, okay, they built all that to last the test of time just to put some king in.
Yeah.
No.
And they built it in 20 years just so then he can just make it in time.
Yeah. This has got to be some other purpose for generating electromagnetism or something like that on a huge scale. So from an astrological point of view, we spoke, before coming on air about this and looking at it from an astrological perspective, and I've got the chart for Egypt as the Republic, which was come about in the 50s or something, which means that obviously Egypt existed long before this, but the Republic of Egypt is interesting to look at the chart of that because we have a birth date and time for it. So it's interesting to look at the correlations to that chart now with regards to what's happening in Egypt. But we have the Sphinx as a monument that is encoded in some pretty significant symbolism, and it would lead you to believe that the symbolism associated to the Sphinx is also tied into the constellation / zodiac. Yeah. Because we have the head of a man and the body of a lion, and that axis within the zodiac is Leo and Aquarius. So my belief is that certainly the Sphinx, maybe the pyramids, or maybe the Sphinx was added to the pyramids at this particular time in our past, which would have been the age of Leo. Now, we are coming into the age of Aquarius, which is the opposite age. So if the great year of the precession of the equinoxes takes about 25,000 years, give or take, and therefore from the age of Leo to the age of Leo is about 25,000 years. So from the age of Leo to the age of Aquarius, opposite, is half that time. So if you look at it about 12,500 years ago, was the time that I believe that...
That was just before the Younger Dryas impact theory when sub-Saharan Africa was tropical.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Where the Nile flowed in different directions and flooded regularly.
That's right.
Cyclically. And, the flooding of the Nile associated to these columns and the ability for the Nile to flow in around these in particular patterns and directions, which could, generate...
electricity, because there was salt in the water. That was the salt water. So then that could generate, it could be a power plant. Yeah.
So it would, for my thinking, it would be hard to believe that the Sphinx wasn't built as a monument during that age. Now that's a 2,500 year period, give or take. So specifically along that time, but I think that would be a homage to the age. Now, why would they build the Sphinx? What is it designed for?
The keeper of knowledge.
Perhaps, exactly right.
That's what they say, the keeper of knowledge.
Exactly. So, it's certainly symbolically, it's not tied into any other zodiac energy, but it aligns specifically to the Leo Aquarius axis. And now we're in the opposite point of that, and we're finding out information that's coming to light in relation to this.
That's super interesting.
That's coming into our collective awareness. As we're moving into this age of Aquarius, I think it's symbolically tied in. It's almost like, perhaps the ancients of the past foreshadowed this period and went, oh shit, this 12,500 years, they're going to be lost.
Yeah.
And when they start to awaken, it's going to be at the opposite point where we're at now.
That's crazy.
And therefore, this stuff starts to come into our awareness.
Coming out.
So like I said earlier, it's not in specifics about this that I'm interested. It's the impact on our collective consciousness that's really interesting to watch.
That's amazing.
Because again, go back to grade 10 science. I had no reason to question the teacher. Now I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you shield,
all
bloody
of that,
shield. Yeah.
It's going to stand the test of time, that's built and designed in that way, and it's lined this particular thing, and it's just to bury someone? Come on,
bro. Yeah.
Don't insult my intelligence.
Exactly. Let's just take
Which is even lower than Elon's, but it's still there.
Maybe it's 100 for me, hopefully.
Who's the guy wearing the wig?
We'll take a break. We'll be back in a sec, guys. All right, guys, we're back. Now we've got some slides that we'll bring up that show the Pyramids of Giza. What's going on underneath them? So this is the first image. There's some pylons going straight to what it looks like the core of the earth or whatever. What would you say? It's just...
Yeah, apparently they are about 600 meters deep. So just that alone, how do we core into the earth and with what type of technology do we like? Obviously, there's machines that do that now, but we're always being led to believe that that technology didn't exist back then. That was done with ropes and pulleys and animals and slave labor.
That just went out the window with this, didn't it?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
There's coils around those giant
Yeah.
cylindrical things.
Pylons, yeah.
Pylons, yeah.
And then there was also reports that some of them are connected to a foundation that's up to 2 kilometers deep. Now, we're starting to talk about a big fucking hole in the ground, aren't we?
Yeah, that's right.
The other thing that people forget about the pyramids is that they used to have two different things. There used to be a capstone.
Yep.
And also there used to be a particular limestone casing. And I forget when in the history of this, but it was all pilfered and pillaged.
Well, that's right. And who knows where the capstone is now, but that was apparently made out of complete solid gold.
Yeah.
Like a conductor or something. Like you can kind of visualize from that, and especially now with the pylons and all these coils that are obviously conductive, it would come to a point at that capstone and it would be blasting energy. Concentrating that energy, just blasting it where? Why is it lined up like the Orion's belt? Why is that? Was it opening a Stargate to the Orion system? Was this portals? Was it a Stargate?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is going on?
So there's a guy online in the US. He's called the Tattoo Monkey. Basically, his name's Ken Wheeler, and I don't know what type of brain he is, but he's super smart with technology
brain.
And physics and
Yeah, cool.
engineering and all of that. Like he's phenomenal, and he's got an interesting and a huge following on his YouTube. He's a really aware and awake guy, and he's definitely an off-gridder as well. And he was saying that the design of these, especially with this new information coming to light, it's almost like when you have a hose with water and then you put a nozzle on the end and you don't change the flow of the water, you just restrict it at the point.
Yeah.
And what happens is the power of that water now, because it's concentrated to a point, is so much more than just the flow going through the hose. And he was sort of trying to explain and describe the pyramids in such a fashion. When you concentrate all of this energy, this electromagnetism or whatever they're drawing or channeling from not only the earth, but whatever was flowing around these pylons.
Yeah.
And then into that point, it's like harnessing it and not only directing it, but amplifying it. It's power.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if you think about that in relation to the construction of these and their ability to withstand time, that's got to be some fucking potency, doesn't it?
Of course, because the general consensus from the Egyptologists say that it was 4,500 years ago. But when you look at the weathering of the Sphinx, when you look at the weathering of the Khufu pyramid, it's dating back to either 16,000 to 32,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So, with this new stuff, who's going to be digging 600-meter holes back 2000 BC, man? You know what I mean? They've got some probably third eye superpower lasers coming out, just blasting the hole. You don't know. Maybe Thoth actually did create these.
Right.
Thoth the Atlantean.
Yeah.
There's something else happening here, man. It's ancient technology, and this is what has been suppressed.
So isn't there some religious beliefs that suggest that the Earth's only 6,000 years old? Have you heard that before? There's some religious philosophies that say, I don't know if it's Christianity or Catholicism. One of them I know is sort of saying, no, the Earth's only 6,000 years old. And I wonder if, the Egyptians and their modern, sort of propaganda in relation to this dating only those 4,000 years is to try and sit within that paradigm. I don't know. It just come to light when you're saying 4,000 years ago. There's no way these fucking things were 4,000 years.
No, dude.
No, that Sphinx is not 4,000 years old.
No.
And Graham Hancock, I see his book over here.
It's signed by him. Yeah, I've met him.
Yes, yeah, I went
Him and
to
his
his
wife,
talk
they're
in Byron Bay a few years
Amazing.
ago.
Him and his wife, such good people.
Absolutely.
I can't believe that people are calling him a racist and a neo-Nazi and a white supremacist. That is the biggest load of bullshit.
That's
I've
because
ever
the
heard.
system told them to.
Yeah, I know. I know.
That's the system.
But
That's what the beast does.
I'm
right?
just here to say that I've met him, right? And I gave him some real kind words during a talk he did in 2013 about the Ark of the Covenant at RMIT.
Mm-hmm.
This is like before he became like one Joe Rogan podcast into it. I watched it and I was just like, I got to meet this guy.
Yep.
And I said some kind words and he gave me a hug. And then he introduced me to Santha, his wife, and she gave me a hug and they both signed that book. And I was just like, this guy, he's coming from the heart, man. He's coming from the heart and he's doing God's work.
100%.
And that's why the system's trying to shut him down.
So I went to that same tour when he came to Byron Bay and spoke, and I went with a mate and we smoked a joint and then went and watched him.
I didn't smoke a joint because I wanted to have a chat to him because I knew if I had smoked a joint, I'm going to pass out and I'm not going to be able to get the words out of my mouth. So I withholded from smoking the joint. And my mate who did, right, Marco, shout out to you, he did. And then he was frazzled and he's like, and then he just got the book signed and left. Only time I didn't smoke a joint, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a bloody phenomenal presentation.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. There's just another aspect of your consciousness that is more open in those types of environments when marijuana is involved.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the application of it in that setting, I feel, is very potent and useful.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yeah.
I had some after it because I was like at the halfway mark. And, it was such a memorable event, dude.
Yeah.
And the Ark of the Covenant in itself is like, apparently these Italian monks have been guarding it and they're all dying of radiation poisoning.
Shit.
So what's going on there? You know what I mean? It's all these occult things.
Well, you go watch the Indiana Jones series. You know, there's a lot of hidden truths in movies. And I remember watching that as a kid and loving it, but like you go back and watch it now and go, oh shit, they're telling us about all this stuff. Yeah.
Maybe it's time to rewatch that.
Smoke a joint first.
Definitely. Watch it in VHS. Old school.
when the grid goes down.
Yeah. Go through a few more of these images. So, all right. So that's the extent to how big these pylons are in regards to the size of the pyramid. That is, the 8 cylindrical structures identified in our tomographic images appear as vertical wells, hollow inside, surrounded by descending spiral pathways. So you could go down.
Wow.
Maybe you can go down there. Maybe there's just like, that's crazy.
That is.
That's nuts. We'll see as time goes on, but.
If you look at modern man's creation on Earth when it comes to the material world, this just pales in comparison. Like we've never built shit like this. And if we have, I don't know, where is it? Show me it.
No.
We just build these fancy buildings and bridges and things and can't imagine them being around in a couple of thousand years. Whereas this shit is like, it's mind-blowing.
It stood the test of time. You know, a lot of people talk about Tartaria and like half the buildings in Australia weren't even built. They're just taken over. But who knows?
So interestingly, today I put up on my own personal social media a lot of discussion about this.
Yep.
In relation to a reel that I put up in the Pluto Aquarius sort of transit and
Very
how this
good
stuff
reel.
is coming to light, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sort of holding this idea of that it's possible that, and again, this is the ability to entertain two opposing viewpoints, that we look at this and we hope that the people that created this were doing it with the betterment of humanity or the preservation of something or something that was good for everyone. But there is a possibility that this is nefarious and malevolent and that it's part of some sort of energetic consciousness control system and in a negative way that maintains a level of, entrapment to humanity's consciousness. So again, I'm not suggesting that's what I believe. I'm just entertaining that perspective.
That it could go both ways.
Because your podcast you had with Thanos recently, I watched that. And you had a lot of good discussion points, and I was like, "Oh, cool! I got a lot to talk about and that stuff too." And you broke down IPAC Goat 2, which is a phenomenal short animated story. There's so much rich symbolism in that. But at the very end of that, if you watch the very closing scene, the sun is pulsing what looks like either solar flares, flashes, or energy coming out of the sun. as it's either rising or setting. I feel like it's rising sun coming from the east. It's these pulses are hitting the pyramids of Giza and destroying them. So it's almost like that whole I Pet Goat 2 series ends with the destruction of the pyramids of Giza.
Wow.
I know.
Whoa, I didn't even notice that.
I know. So that's why I entertain the possibility that these motherfuckers could be built as a control system. And that part of our understanding is like, oh, that's how they're doing this. And maybe they've never stopped working. Maybe that's part of this idea of control to this paradigm that we live within. Yeah. And again, I'm not suggesting that's what I believe, but I'm entertaining that idea, that paradox, you know. But the I Pet Goat 2, like I've watched that for years and I keep coming back to it cyclically, and I look at the symbolism, and each time I do, I find something each newer, but I've always looked at that end scene. I'm like, why would they depict the destruction of the pyramids?
Yeah.
Like, why would they do that?
The pyramids have lasted for so long. Why would they show the destruction of that, especially from a solar flare?
But if you look at that movie, the premise of that movie is information coming to light and then destruction of the church, of Islam, of religion.
Introduction of the Antichrist.
Right? And all of a sudden, what is that, the guy in the boat? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, the fake Jesus, fake...
But maybe that's not. Maybe that's just Christ consciousness coming down the river.
And it's just getting attacked and destroyed. And
well, as that consciousness is coming down the river, if you think about the age of Aquarius as the water bearer, so it pours the water onto the earth to flow the wisdom of the sky into the people, which is the awakening of consciousness of Christ within. Okay, and maybe that awakening is what creates the destruction of all these other control systems that have religion and, you know, government and things like that. Yeah. And that the final part of this whole I Pet Goat series story is this energy coming from a sun. And when you see the symbolism of a rising sun in that sense, you're depicting the birth of a new age.
Yeah.
Right? Because what happens as the new age comes in, the frequency that the sun emits, which it is a frequency, is going to shift completely. And that shifting of that frequency is going to impact on the consciousness of the collective, of the human. And it's symbolically depicted as in that energy coming in and bringing down the pyramids. Like,
if you look at
it's like, what the fuck?
If you look where the major structures are that are like pyramids, you got like in South America, there's pyramids. In China, there's pyramids. In Bulgaria, there's pyramids. There's like an energy meridian around the world that has pyramids in it, right? Imagine if all of these have pylons under them, yeah? Then you've got a grid matrix that when in form, when on and working, who knows what that's doing? It's either free energy or it's a massive control grid. Or it could be both.
The free energy argument I don't buy into, because how come if it's free energy we haven't tapped into that and been able to utilize that? Like, it's free energy? In what way? How is that free energy? You know what I mean? Like, I get it. It's a nice idea to sort of, it's free energy. It's energy. It's free energy. Like, at what point?
From the ether, like they would say that, like Nikola Tesla was talking about that. No one's done that yet.
At what point has the controlling hierarchy of authority ever done anything for the betterment of the people? That's an ideal. It's idealistic. Like, oh, isn't that, you know, for the people? The hierarchy of authority has never done that, ever.
People don't even know what they're doing. They're burning down Teslas now.
All right.
And they hate Elon Musk, but they love Elon Musk, but they hate him.
But that's because the TV told them to.
Yeah. It's so funny. It just goes to show how
controllable.
Suggestible. Yeah, suggestible people aren't controlled. It's pretty crazy, man.
Sure.
So over here I've got a chart that you've
sent through,
You've sent through. And this is Egypt.
This is the
chart.
Republic of Egypt that was created on the 19th of June 1953, 1:30 a.m. This data is quite accurate for the creation of the Republic of Egypt. Now, when you're thinking about a country's birth chart, we're dealing with an idea. Like Australia's birth chart, obviously Australia existed before the creation of the Federation of Australia.
Yeah.
So how do we know, like, if we're looking at the birth chart of the land or the first peoples, how do we know the birth time? How do we know the birth date? We don't. But when we have something significant like the creation of a republic or the federation, we have specific moment in time that was brought into, reality.
Yeah.
So that's what this particular chart was. So I haven't done this was purely just a little bit of research for this podcast. What struck me instantly is, okay, this is the Republic of Egypt. And Pluto, as it's been going into Aquarius, is sitting right now on the north node of the Republic of Egypt's chart. And now the north node...
If you want to use the mouse, you can show where...
Yeah, sorry. So here's Pluto, right? That's Pluto, when it's a transiting energy like here, so we've got the transits. So the inner wheel is the birth chart, and the outer wheel is what's happening in the cosmos at this particular time. So that's Pluto in Aquarius. When you hear like Pluto's transit of Aquarius, started to enter that sign in 2023. It'll leave that sign in 2044. So we have this long transformative process of the quality of Aquarius. Now, it's sitting now, right, on the north node of this Republic of Egypt. The north node, when it comes to a country's chart, deals with the evolution of that idea, right? The evolution of it, the future of it. You have this Plutonic energy, which is death and rebirth, and it's sitting pretty much bang on the north node. To give you an idea, the conjunction of Pluto on the north node, Pluto, when this republic idea came about, was in Leo, the sign opposite. So it's taken from 1953 till now for Pluto to get to this point. So it'll be another 250 years before it comes back to this particular location. So it's quite interesting to see that correlation or connection at this particular precise time. Yep. The second thing that stands out is that it's going through its Jupiter return. So its natal Jupiter is in Gemini. The Republic has the Gemini sun, and you have Jupiter, which deals with development of information, growth, changes to the ideals of the particular location or person.
Yep.
So those two things struck me straight away as happening, and I thought, that's interesting. And then all of this is happening because the first house of a nation deals with the people of that particular nation. The ascendant degree of Egypt's republic is exactly the same as Australia's, with 29 degrees of Aries. So that was like, they're exactly the same. But we have at the moment the Mercury, Venus retrograding through this Aries energy in the first house. So, we're dealing with a revelation in a sense with these energies coming in.
Definitely.
And that revelation is Plutonic in nature. Something that's hidden, buried, or unknown is coming to light now. That's not to say that they didn't know about this, but they've chosen this time perhaps
to bring it out.
Yep. And it sort of fits in to at least the Republic of Egypt. Yep. So I found that quite interesting.
It's very interesting. It's the revelations are coming out during this time, and Pluto in Aquarius since last year in November.
And the last year in November is when it finally entered to no longer be back in Capricorn.
Yeah.
But it began that journey of transitioning into Aquarius in 2023 in March 2023. Yeah. And then November 2024, it finally entered completely. So it's no longer going to get back into Capricorn.
So it's full Aquarius.
Yeah. So from 2024 to 2044, 20 years, it'll maintain its transit of that sign.
So within the first couple of months of being in Aquarius, the news of this has just dropped.
Yeah.
And this is like huge. And we've got another 20 something years in in this
particular sign. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, and what is it bringing to light? It's bringing to light things that have been hidden or concealed, or that are deep, the unconscious of either information, or in this particular case, quite literally deep and under the ground of the pyramid.
Yeah. Uncovering hidden truths.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. And again, I'll stress, it's the impact that this type of information has on the collective consciousness that we're going to see with this Pluto transit of Aquarius. It's going to completely radicalize, revolutionize, or transform collective consciousness.
And that's what we need right now, dude. We need that.
Yeah. And again, I look to the system. I feel like September 11 and the COVID era was the system's changes that they were making in light of this shift that's happening, because they've got to have mechanisms in place
Control.
to be able to control that process.
Yep.
Because left uncontrolled, that could really like shift.
The veil will be uncovered very quickly. So it's like slowly unveiling it.
The last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had the French Revolution where the people overthrew the sitting government.
Oh, they beheaded the king.
Yeah.
They dethroned him. They created the republic.
Yeah.
There was never a republic created before. That's why there's a Statue of Liberty, and there's a pyramid in France. There's the obelisk in France, London, and in Washington. DC. So the republic was formed during that time, which is super interesting, man. I wish a republic could be formed in Australia. How crazy is that?
Yeah, you look at Australia's birth chart for its federation and it's like, oh, there is hidden, foreign control here.
Yeah.
I want to let that go. Yeah, we'll have a look at that. So, and the other thing I'll just finish on as well, in relation to that, is that when Pluto was in Aquarius last time, that was also the American independence, where they severed themselves from the crown.
Oh, wow.
So
super interesting.
Interesting, like those in the know, I'm not talking about the bureaucratic or politician level of government. I'm talking about the people beyond that in the shadows, the shadow government. Yep. They know this. They're not unaware of this. It's not just coincidental. So if they know, wow, we're going to have Pluto going to Aquarius, we have the possibility of a revolution of collective consciousness and awakening of it en masse. And we can look historically at last time this happened and holy shit, we lost control of America. We lost control of France. You know what I mean? There's more to that story. It's going to play out this year and over the next sort of 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
But again, I look to September 11 and the response to that, as well as the response to COVID, whereas their ability to establish systems in place that could perhaps, again, look at the hose, right?
Yeah.
You know how you can direct it and make it more powerful? You can also turn it the other way and make it piss weak.
That's right.
So it's like what hose mechanism is in place to sort of direct the flow or the magnitude of that flow of awakening of consciousness, And is this Egypt thing just them directing the flow, drip feeding it? We've got to give them something. Let's give them that.
Yeah, give them something. I got a lot of conspiracy mates that are saying, come on, bro, we already know what the pyramids are for. They're just drip feeding us whatever they want. Like, they already knew this. And
they already know.
Yeah.
We could, guess, and we could have some good guesses. And there might be people out there that proclaim to know, but do we? Or are we just operating from what we've been told?
Yeah. Well, I guess someone had to actually use that technology that's some kind of like a LiDAR tomography technology to be able to do that. I guess if they didn't do that, then it would have never been found out. So at least someone did that and they released it. And I'm sure the people that already knew about that didn't really want it to come out, but what are they going to do? It's too late now. Yeah, something's out.
Maybe.
But how much more stuff are we going to find out in the next 20 years?
Well, the other thing about this is what they're telling us that they found.
Yeah.
What are they not telling us they found? Because that's often control opposition is to control the opposition, right? Is to sort of go, right, well, let them know that bit, but don't give them that bit. So it's like, the gatekeepers, they give you half-truths. Like, and you go, oh my God, that's amazing. That's information.
But they know everything all along.
But they just stop you at that point of what you really need to know. And is this that? I mean, again, you've got to be able to paradoxically hold these ideas and opinions and perspectives simultaneously without necessarily hinging your wagon to one particular point of view. I think that's a collective message for everyone. Like going through the next 20 years, you have to detach from what you believe you know in order to navigate what's coming to light.
Exactly. And during this time when there's so much misinformation, just so much information in general bombarded into us, it's just like, hey, take a step back.
Yeah. Just
breathe, right? And maybe go with your intuition and your feeling instead of just like analytically just reading everything, because that's gonna cook your brain.
Well, there's a saying that knowledge without understanding is fucking dangerous. And yeah, you might have the knowledge, but do you really understand the implication of that knowledge? And what you get with knowledge without understanding is you get a know-it-all.
Yeah. No wisdom in that.
No wisdom.
No.
Because knowledge without understanding lacks wisdom. So, that's why I entertain these ideas and perspectives and opinion. I welcome this information, but I also hold the opposing perspective in place to sort of keep me centered.
Yeah.
So I don't go, oh my God, this is what it is. I know. Like it's definitely this.
Exactly.
And my DMs lit up today with some people that were coming, like there's this guy and here he said like this is what it is. And I'm like,
Well, that's you make a good point, and you did talk about how that who knows the pyramid could be the exact opposite of what we think it is. I was very adamant that it's a power plant, right? I never ever entertained the idea that it could be a control grid matrix that would lock us in and lock our consciousness in a way. And that's the first time I've ever heard of that. So you are opposing, you are entertaining both opposing ideas, and I think that's important. It's very important to be able to entertain ideas without accepting them.
Yeah. So what I believe one of the definitions of extremism is hitching to a particular perspective or an opinion or knowledge and creating it factual and then just taking that to the nth degree. And one of the things that we know as astrologers is Pluto's effect in a particular sign will create an extreme polarization. So you can see that playing out with people responding to Elon Musk and Tesla. That's an extreme, right?
Yeah.
Like representation of an extreme perspective or opinion or belief.
They're burning the cars down.
And I've said this countless times in the past before. Those extremes will be annihilated through this age period. So don't drift to the extreme.
Stay central.
You have to stay very centered. And that's like this stuff comes out and you want to go, oh my God. And off you go down. You got to come back and go, what's the opposite to this? Because all of those things can't exist without the opposite. If it's this, then what's the opposite? And what you'll find is the truth is somewhere in the middle. And then you also realize that the more you know, Aquarius, the more you realize you don't know shit. And therefore, now I'm free.
Yeah.
Because I'm in that place of, possible.
Not affecting me.
And if someone goes, this is what it is, I go, that's interesting. And if someone else on the other side goes, this is what it is, I go, well, that's also interesting, And then you allow the natural God-given intuition to be the guide through all of that, because that's what you can qualify the knowledge and information against. But if you're polarized, your intuition is going to reinforce or validate whatever perspective that you're holding on to.
Right or left.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you'll believe because it's like, oh, that's what I feel. It's like, yeah, but that's just because you're attached.
But that's not actually what you feel, because you're not actually going with your heart, because your brain's actually decided that and it's bypassing your heart.
Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Subconsciously, you're holding on to this. So subconsciously, you are connected to any information or perspective that validates that attachment, which then feels intuitive.
Because you're looking right for it. Yeah, because it feels right to you.
And you're right, but you're also self-prophesizing that perspective.
Yeah, and you're going more and more insane in the process.
Yeah.
You're going further and further away from your source or your centrist.
And that is one of the shadow aspects of Pluto in Aquarius that we have to be mindful of. Is you get dragged outside of that central place and you've attached to something, you're going into extreme really quickly. Yeah. And we're seeing that already, the extremism type of behavior playing out in this system. And it's only going to amplify. Like it's going to amplify.
Things are going to get hectic.
Yeah. And those extremes are drawn to a place of conflict to annihilate that. That's like there's no right or wrong in that situation.
No.
Yeah.
Just be
they're
good.
right and they're right. And it's like, okay.
I'm staying out of this
not
one.
my fight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyway, we digress.
Yes. Let me bring up the Australia. So Australia rejected becoming a republic in 1999, and 54.87% voted against it. So it was a very close vote. With Pluto in Aquarius between 2024 to 2043, and Neptune entering Aries later this month. Could these shifts reignite discussions about Australia's relationship with the monarchy?
100%. Let's look natally at Australia's federational chart. 1st of Jan 1901, 1:35 p.m. in Sydney. There's a few different charts that you can use, and I tend to use this one. We have the Sun and Saturn conjunction in the 9th house. So the 9th house is foreign connection, right? So when you think about foreign ownership, or in the case of a Saturn-Sun conjunction, there is some authority or control that's operating from a foreign place in relation to Australia as a nation, right? So interestingly, when you look at this point up here, the top of the chart, in a birth chart, that's going to be called the midheaven, and that relates to your public image or reputation, as well as your career point, or when someone asks me the question, what am I going to do with my life? What direction, or what do I do? What's my central sort of aim for my physical aspect of life? I always look to the 10th house to sort of see the condition of that and the ruler of that and what's happening in that part. Yep. In a country, this relates to the direction of the country, right, as a whole, but also it relates to the sitting government. So whoever's the party that's in control at the time is depicted by the midheaven, and the opposite point is the opposition.
Interesting.
Yeah. So Pluto's transit into Aquarius, you will notice up here it's 2 degrees of Aquarius on Australia's midheaven. So last year, this year, next year, Pluto is going to sit on that point. And therefore, there is going to be a massive transformation to the direction this country takes. But if we look to Pluto natally, it's down here in our 2nd house. And the 2nd house deals with the wealth and money of a nation. And Pluto is a hidden or concealed group or groups that have power. You've heard of aristocrat?
Yep.
Then there's plutocrats. Plutocrats are so powerful, you don't even know who they are.
And that's why they're plutocrats, because they're so far away.
They're so hidden and concealed. And it's almost like you look at this argument about the monarchy. I don't think that's who's in control of this nation. I think they've been usurped a while ago, and that they're the figurehead, but they're not actually in control. Who I think's in control is some very secret societies or organizations that are connected to banking.
Okay, so like a cabal of like Rothschild cabal or something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you think about how wealthy this nation is, but how they keep the populace at that threshold of like struggle, the Aussie battler.
Yeah.
Right? But yet we are one of the richest via resources and geography, and we are one of the wealthiest places on this earth.
Dude, I was asking.
So who controls that wealth? I'll tell you right now.
Yeah.
It's a secret cabal that they're using this idea of a monarchy, or the figurehead, the head of state being the king or the queen, as this to keep the people thinking
a bypass.
That's who's in control. Maybe initially, right, when they sent Captain Cook here, but I think that's been usurped, and that there is some foreign component to this, and that the puppets that are in our particular government at the moment are just basically puppets that are being controlled from the shadow in relation to, and all they do to control them from the shadow is financially control them. And if you think about the heartless people that are in our bureaucracy and government, the vast majority, not all, because there are some good people.
Yeah, I'm sure.
When they're heartless and they're in their head, dangle that little carrot.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Just dangle the carrot, mate.
Yeah. Dangle that carrot, and there they go. And then therefore, what have they done to this nation? They've sold us out.
We have been sold out. I asked ChatGPT before, I'm like, how much money has been extracted out of Australia from resources? And it goes it's in the several trillions. It's in the trillions, dude. Like several $1 trillion. You know, we've been sold out, and it's kind of disgusting when you think about it. It's
look at it like
so
this.
sad.
Right? Look at it like this. They just did the budget yesterday or whatever.
What did they do? Give you $50, reduce the bill bonus?
There's $1 trillion deficit.
$1 trillion.
Australia has $1 trillion deficit.
Victoria's got like 300 billion of that.
Okay, but we have billions, if not trillions of dollars of resources,
Yeah,
right? Of value in resources.
of course.
Yet we're $1 trillion in debt. Who are we in debt to?
That's the question. The world's in debt to who? Who are we in debt to?
There'll be some economists that can come on and give you like the, you know,
The approximate figure of the
the very
I'm an NPC.
totally.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's just, yeah. Now, bringing this, because I'm mindful of the time,
Yeah.
and bringing this into like more common, like, okay, we're due for an election, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. This is how I foresee that happening. It wouldn't surprise me. We've got an eclipse happening in Aries,
Yep.
29th and 30th of March, which is only a few days' time.
Yep.
Traditionally, they tend to announce elections on a Sunday, and they always hold them on a Saturday. And there are only 3 more dates this year that are going to be one of the days of our election, and they're in March, I think the 10th, each Saturday from, I think, maybe the 3rd or 4th.
Yep.
And then the 3 Saturdays after, like 3 Saturdays after that. That's the time for, like, it can only be one of those.
Yep.
There has to be, I believe, a minimum of 33 days between announcing an election for each side to prepare their propaganda,
Yes,
which is bollocks,
of course.
right? They've just released the budget. It wouldn't surprise me on the eclipse. When there's an eclipse happening, there's shady energy going on.
Oh, yeah.
Something's being obscured or occulted or hidden and concealed. The eclipse for our chart up here, sorry, pointing, because everyone at home is watching me point to a screen going, what the fuck are you looking at? I should use the mouse. That's
No, it's
again,
already on the computer screen, so you use the mouse.
Yeah, I'm going to use the mouse now.
Yeah.
The eclipse is happening in the 12th house.
Yeah.
In the 12th house, things are hidden and obscured. They're hidden out of awareness, right?
Yeah.
So we have an eclipse in that part of the chart, and they announce the election, and then you fast forward to when the election would be, and you have the Pluto-Mars opposition happening across our 4th house and our 10th house in relation to the sitting government and the opposition. And I feel like the outcome of this
Yep.
is going to be a minority victory.
That's good.
No.
Oh, no. A minority victory as in the Greens and the Teals and all those guys.
Yes.
That's just more power for Labor.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like
so it's going to
independence.
feel like, yes, because what they've done really
Yeah.
with the political aspect of Australia's sort of government at the moment is they've given us very good reason to look at both parties and be very disenchanted.
Disappointed.
Totally. Just
Yeah.
like disconnected. Like both of them have lost relevance.
Correct. Yeah.
You know,
They really have.
so then it's like, what's the alternative? Oh, like let's get all these independents in, which sounds good at the end of the day, but then you really have control handed over to bureaucracy and
course.
those that control the bureaucracy.
Yeah. The only way I reckon that you can smash this whole paradigm is by going republic or at least putting a vote. But
So the system at its essence is probably, as far as we are as a people at the moment on Earth, the systems is probably as good as we could come up with.
yeah.
Where we're at.
Yeah.
The problem is it's been corrupted. So therefore, if the system's corrupted, voting in a different person to be the public image of that system,
It's not changing anything.
it's not going to change anything.
No.
And if you give over or if you transform Pluto on the midheaven, right, a death and destruction of the political power and going into disbursement of that, it might seem on the face of it that that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think the impact of that is going to be quite a lot of hardship, especially for those people clinging to the illusion that this system and this government and these people have your interests at heart, because quite clearly there is a hidden shadow aspect of control that really is pulling the strings, and they're doing it not for your best interests.
Regardless if it's a monarch or if it's a republic or if it's...
And all of a sudden you get a few Greens or a Teal or a few independents in, and it feels good. It feels good, right? The reality of that is we don't want to do what feels good. We want to do what's fucking right for the people.
They're two
And
different
sometimes
things.
what's right is very hard to do. And we don't have any politicians with the courage or the spine to do the right thing. So they pander to the feelings of the populace. And the populace feel like, well, that one man, I don't like him or him. Cool, let's vote all of these other people. That feels good. The reality of operating from that level of, emotion is going to be hardship for a lot.
Since 1999 and since that, like the referendum to potentially make Australia a republic, I feel like we've been dumbed down really hard. Like, what happened to Australians? Like, how have we gotten this dumb? Like, how have we gotten this simple? Like, we used to laugh at Americans for being dumb. And now the whole world's looking at us like, those guys were like locked down for a whole year. They just like did whatever the government says. Like, how has this happened? Sorry, that's a big question to ask.
It requires a little bit of, reflection.
It's
What comes to mind instantly is that they did this to children that grew up and all of a sudden became corporate leaders and politicians and that. So it's been a systematic attack
from birth,
from an early educational perspective.
Yep.
That probably started when we were at school or even before. But if you look at my parents' generation, it hadn't quite infiltrated then, So probably in the 70s, they started a indoctrination or educational system that led us to a weakening of will.
Yeah.
And
more fluoride in the water.
Yeah, and also, we've always been like, just let me do my thing, leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah.
And we're all happy and everything's good.
Increase the taxes slowly,
Right.
slowly. Increase the taxes.
Yeah.
Increase this, new laws, this,
But
that,
see,
pay more
as
money.
they did all of those things, they amplified the bullshit to entertain or to distract us.
Yes.
So sport went crazy.
Maths
And reality television went crazy.
makes us dumber.
Yeah. And we indulged in that
Destroys
as
the
a
sanctity.
distraction from confronting the reality of, fucking hell, what another rule, another tax, another, So
Pump the gambling. So much gambling here, dude.
So it's the classic, frog in the boiling water.
yeah.
If you boil the water and put the frog in, it jumps straight out. Like, fuck that.
Mm.
But if you put the frog in the water and then slowly boil the water,
It ain't
frog
gonna
just
notice.
fries. And right now, Australia's boiling. The water's boiling.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, it's not that bad.
It's all right. It just feels like
Yeah,
a
but
spa.
did you see who won the footy? And like what?
Collingwood won today.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
While around them, like we've
Yeah.
been usurped.
The economy's cooked, right? We owe $1 trillion. How, like, the Australian dollar is absolutely pathetic on the world stage.
We have a dumbed down and docile population.
We do, and it's gotten worse since COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But I only hope that people here start to wake up, because people around the world have started to wake up. I feel like we're lagging behind a bit.
So here's another thing about that. Right now, who should have the microphone is Generation X. But the Generation X was conditioned from, their generation to not have a voice, or that their voice didn't matter, right? So what happened was that microphone got passed to the next generation, and that's the generation after us, which would be your generation.
Yep.
And for the vast majority, not all, present company excluded, of that generation, they've been manipulated. So that's why you get, this, the ones with the loudest voice at the moment are the people that are immature,
Of course.
weak-minded, but let me be a unicorn or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
And
there's some podcasts out there that
we're entertaining that voice.
Of course. And that's what people want to watch.
Yeah.
Like, there's some massive podcasts out there in Australia that are getting hundreds of thousands of views, and they're just talking about, like, oh my God, I think I did this today. And it's like the most dumbest, docile, stupidest shit, right? And people just eat it up.
Yep.
And I'm just like, okay, cool. You will remain an NPC for the rest of your life. You will never actually have a unique thought or idea. But, you know, like, and then, you know, who knows if I'm getting suppressed, probably. I don't even care anymore, but I'm still going to keep doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, it is what it is, you know. I don't care if the level of difficulty is hard for me. That'll only make me want it more.
Now again, holding this idea of a paradox, so the opposite opposing perspective.
Yeah.
I'm also simultaneously quite optimistic about the future, because I feel like what's going to happen is they're going to try as their might to control this evolution of consciousness.
They can't do it.
Right? And they will ultimately fail, and we will prevail. However, along that road, there are going to be a lot of casualties. Just like through the COVID era and beyond, there's a lot of casualties to that. So don't be caught up in that, you know. And those that are stuck listening to those million-view podcasts about meaningless bullshit are probably going to be swept up in that and be caught up in the byproduct of this massive shift that's taking place. So if I go back to my journey, you know, I started looking at conspiracies about 2012, 2014, 15 was massive, 16, 17. That was when the internet and YouTube in particular was the Wild West. There was no censorship. There was a lot of good information.
There was.
Then I look at 2018 to 2020 and the awareness and the information and everything, and who was speaking and what I was speaking about. Then COVID hit, and I look at like now, and whilst, yes, there is a lot of bollocks, there's also a lot more people, a lot more aware than there ever has been.
That's true.
And the thing is that we don't sort of quantify that is because then they're not yet fully all of them. Imagine if all of them had their voice. All of them had the courage and the will to stand up and confront and resist this bullshit that's going on. Not only in our country, but around the world, especially in Western, countries. So, but I feel like this Saturn-Neptune conjunction is going to be polarity in the sense that there's going to be a lot of people that are losing the will and that are being confused and a little bit like disorientated, but there's also going to be a lot of people that are enacting on their sovereign will. And you're going to see more and more of that. I see it in the work that I do, the people that I support on their awakening journey, and you can watch them grow and develop. And you go, fuck, look how far you've come like 2 or 3 years ago to now.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to give people that awareness to sort of check back into that version of themselves because they forget.
Yeah.
And they still think they're them. And it's like, no, you've completely changed. Yeah. So that is not, it's like the whole thing is like when you awaken, you don't go back to sleep. It's very rare. It can happen, but mostly you awaken now. So you continue journey of conscious expansion.
Continue. You know, a couple of years in, you'll be checking, seed oils and that. I'm not eating that. Beef tallow, ghee, no fluoride. I don't have fluoride in anything. Yeah. And it's like a natural progression for people, you know, the longer that they're in it, the more human they become.
And we reach a tipping point, right? Once you get to that tipping point, I feel like we've consciously surpassed it. There is no, like, it's just inertia now that's going to take this and continue it forward. Yeah. Yeah. They know this. They've put in systems in place to control this, to impede this, or to prevent this. Don't buy into that.
It ultimately will fail.
It'll ultimately fail.
We will succeed.
Yes.
As it's always, that's just the way it is. It's the way it's written.
And I know personally for me, because of the conviction that I hold in relation to this, same I held through the COVID era. Yep. If they come to the door with a gun and say, you have to take this shot or we're going to end your life, my life ends at that moment.
Give us the bullet, mate.
That's the conviction.
Yeah. That's why you were down with me protesting 100%. In Melbourne in the city during COVID days. That's why we were there together.
So we've collectively, as you've become more consciously aware and you see, you might not know exactly how and why, but you just get it. And when you hear information like today that we've discussed, especially in relation to Australia, you sort of go, yeah, that feels right. Yeah. Now is going to be an opportunity is this year when this sort of, Saturn, Neptune, Aries conjunction occurs, is the ability to integrate that into action in your life with the conviction to say, no, that's not me. I'm not going to buy into that. I'm not going to go burn a Tesla. I'm not going to go and protest at the Palestine part thing. Yeah. Like that can happen.
Yeah.
Not suggesting that that's a good or a bad thing, but that's not me.
Yeah. I'm staying right here
Yeah.
and I'm concentrating on my energy and making sure that I'm all good.
And acting with the courage to allow the heart to be the guide.
That's so important.
100%.
Let's end on that. That's beautiful.
Amen.
All right, brother. Thank you for coming on, and I'll have you again soon, maybe at the end of the year or something.
For
And
sure.
it's always a pleasure having you on. It's just a pleasure being in your presence.
Mate, I'm honoured, mate. It's always good fun. It's always good fun, mate.
thank you, mate.
I really, I count you as one of my close good friends. I appreciate it,
Same
mate.
here, dude.
Yeah,
Same
yeah,
here, 100%.
yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. And everybody, thank you for listening. And see you, everybody. Bye.
Cheers.